that revised job growth, showing that job growth in the United States had slowed to a near halt over the past 3 months.
I want to get to some breaking news just into us right now. The same day as those dismal jobs numbers came out, Donald Trump is firing the Commissioner of Labor Statistics, accusing the commissioner of faking the jobs numbers in a Truth Social post. Today's report not only included lower than expected numbers for the month of July, but huge downward revisions.
The market pullback today coming after the Labor Department reported that the U.S. economy created just 73,000 new jobs in July.
President, why did you fire the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics?
Because I think her numbers were wrong. Just like I thought her numbers were wrong before the election. Days before the election, she came out with these beautiful numbers for Kamala. I guess Biden/Kamala. And she came out with these beautiful numbers trying to get somebody else elected.
The July jobs report has landed like a thunderclap over the U.S. economy, exposing cracks that tariffs, trade bravado, and immigration crackdowns can no longer paper over. What was sold to the American people as a path to job security is now showing its real cost. A shrinking labor force, declining corporate confidence, and an economy losing its footing. The political fallout was immediate. Hours after the July jobs numbers were released, President Donald Trump abruptly fired the Commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The firing wasn't just a personnel change, it was a statement. The numbers were embarrassing, and the messenger was removed. The numbers tell a story that no spin can erase. In July, the United States added only 73,000 jobs. That is a far cry from the steady hiring that once fueled optimism. Even worse, the months of May and June were revised downward by a staggering 258,000 jobs combined, wiping away what had looked like modest gains and replacing them with a stark warning. The trend is headed in the wrong direction. Unemployment, which had hovered in a tight band for months, quietly ticked higher. Officially, the rate came in at 4.2%. But before rounding, the truth was more precise and more troubling, 4.248%. In June, the rate had dipped to 4.1%. But that wasn't because more Americans found work. It was because thousands gave up looking altogether, quietly exiting the labor force. The July report doesn't just show slower job growth, it reveals a weakening foundation. Since January, the American labor force has shrunk by more than 400,000 people. Since its peak in April, the drop has been almost 800,000. This is not a cyclical dip, this is a structural warning sign. One major reason lies in immigration. For decades, immigrants have been the engine behind more than half of America's labor force growth. But between January and July, the number of foreign-born workers fell by 1.2 million. Since March, the decline has reached 1.7 million. These are not just statistics. These are workers who staff hospitals, operate machinery, and keep supply chains moving. Without them, key sectors are slowing, and companies are feeling the strain. The connection between immigration and economic health is undeniable. Labor force growth and productivity growth are the twin pillars of any nation's long-term prosperity. Remove one and the other wobbles. The Trump administration's approach to immigration has weakened both, and now the consequences are emerging in black and white on the Bureau of Labor Statistics reports. While Washington wrestled over the politics of the report, corporate America was already making decisions. The rising tariffs, coupled with uncertainty about the future of trade policy, are reshaping where companies choose to operate. And increasingly, that choice is not the United States. Walmart, America's largest retailer, has begun shifting its focus to foreign markets. New locations in Vietnam and across Latin America are part of a strategy to protect supply chains and cut operating costs. The message is subtle but unmistakable. Higher tariffs and economic unpredictability make the US a riskier place to do business. They are not alone. General Motors, Ford, Burger King, and Coca-Cola are all signaling that the economic climate in America is forcing them to reconsider their footprint. These are not small moves, these are major corporate decisions that ripple through communities and local economies. When big companies shift production or investment abroad, they take jobs, tax revenue, and stability with them. This corporate exodus comes as the US job market shows signs of stress in multiple areas. Manufacturing, once touted as the great beneficiary of tariffs, shed 11,000 jobs in July alone. Government payrolls declined by 10,000, driven by a sharp drop of 12,000 jobs in the federal workforce. Since January, federal payrolls have shrunk by 84,000. The heart of the issue remains the labor force itself. A smaller pool of workers means fewer people paying taxes, fewer consumers spending money, and fewer innovators driving productivity. When immigrants leave or are prevented from entering, the effects compound over time. Businesses struggle to fill positions, growth slows, and competitiveness declines. The Trump administration's immigration policies have magnified these problems. By reducing the number of foreign-born workers, the administration has constricted the labor supply at a time when the economy is already navigating uncertainty from tariffs and global competition. The July jobs report is the most recent and perhaps most striking evidence of this strain. Yet instead of addressing the underlying issues, the White House has chosen confrontation. Firing the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics sends a dangerous message that data will be judged not by its accuracy, but by its political convenience. This erodes trust, both domestically and internationally, in America's economic reporting. For companies already on the fence about investing in the US, this is another reason to look elsewhere. Predictability and transparency are essential for long-term planning. When those are replaced by volatility and political intervention, stability is lost. It's not just businesses that feel the impact. Workers across the country are starting to notice the changes in their own lives. Layoffs in manufacturing towns, slower hiring in key industries, and the exit of major employers all translate into fewer opportunities. Communities built around a single large employer now face the risk of decline if that employer decides to relocate. Meanwhile, the tariffs that were designed to protect American industries are creating headwinds for them instead. Higher costs for raw materials, supply chain disruptions, and retaliatory tariffs from trading partners have squeezed margins. In many cases, companies are passing those costs on to consumers, further eroding purchasing power. The economic story of 2025 is becoming clear. An approach that emphasizes tariffs and restricts immigration is colliding with the realities of a globalized economy. While the intent may have been to strengthen America's position, the result has been increased uncertainty, corporate flight, and a labor market that is weaker than it appears at first glance. The July jobs report is more than a snapshot of a single month. It is a warning about the trajectory of the economy. If labor force participation continues to shrink, if companies continue to move operations overseas, and if transparency in reporting continues to erode, the challenges will deepen. In boardrooms across America, executives are already adjusting strategies. In state houses, governors are weighing the impact on local economies. And on shop floors, workers are asking whether the promises of economic revitalization will ever materialize. The numbers are not partisan. 73,000 new jobs in July, a 4.2% unemployment rate, a labor force that has lost hundreds of thousands of workers in just a few months. These are hard facts, and they tell a story of an economy that is slowing under the weight of policies that have created more friction than growth. Whether the administration changes course or doubles down remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: the July jobs report has exposed the fragility of the current economic approach. Without a shift in strategy, one that addresses both labor force growth and global trade realities, the US risks falling further behind in a competitive world economy. The headlines may fade, but the effects will not. Communities will feel the loss of jobs when major employers leave. Workers will notice when opportunities shrink, and the broader economy will reflect the strain of a labor force that is not growing fast enough to support future prosperity. For now, the warning has been delivered, in numbers and in actions. The firing of the Bureau of Labor Statistics chief is a political moment, but the real story is economic. America's growth depends on its people, its policies, and its ability to adapt. Right now, all three are under pressure. The July jobs report is a chapter in that story, a reminder that economic strength cannot be maintained by rhetoric alone. It requires policies that recognize the importance of a diverse, growing workforce, stable trade relationships, and a business climate that encourages investment rather than drives it away. The question is whether that lesson will be learned before more jobs, more companies, and more opportunities are lost.